The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Dr. Rab, what you got? Oh, I like that. Every time he howls, man, it cuts out. He's howling so loud. Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, Ross Bridge Vet on Twitter, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook, and of course you can give them a call anytime, 205-208-0301. This is Dark Side of the Pooch, brought to you by Ed's Pet World, 47-year family-owned business right there in Homewood, Birmingham, specializing in exotic pets, pet exhibitions. They do classroom things. They'll do parties for you. They've been around since 1974. You can get all kinds of great exotic pets, and of course they'll do everything they can to make sure and ensure you have the best relationship with them, from red-tailed boas, lizards, geckos, chameleons, bearded dragons, birds, parakeets, Amazon parrots that even talk to you, rabbits, chinchillas, ferrets, more. Easter coming up right around the corner, so think about those rabbits. Plus, they have an amazing collection of vintage and modern toys. Seth travels the United States, comes home with some great figures, pops, Star Wars stuff still in the box. If you find anything in your attic and you want to buy, sell, or trade, you can do it with Ed's Pet World, 879-1331, 879-1331. Dr. Rab, before we get into it, we got some killer Mutt Mail. The emails, keep them coming. TonyKurreRadio.net. Become a bonehead and leave your email. We'll get into it. But what's going on at your office? Everything good? Anything exciting happening?
Oh, we're all good. You know, I want to just about Ed's. The Star Wars stuff they have is so cool. I love Star Wars. Like, the stuff they have in there is just incredible.
Yeah, I went down there last week, and someone had brought in a Stingray that they had bought from them 4 or 5 years earlier, and it had passed away. And we were talking about his fish aquariums, and if you go into Ed's and everyone, it's an institution, man. If you live here in Birmingham, you got to go to Ed's at least once in your life. And he was talking about the condition of his tanks. And I noticed that I am having one of those things where everything in my tank is just perfect. And I got some algae in there. I got some things that's not as clean as I'd like, but the fish love it. Much like a body of a dog or a cat, it must have good bacteria in it in order for it to grow and be a healthy animal. Do you know what I'm saying? And so he talks about, he goes, yeah, some people sit there and say, you know, our tanks are crystal clear. Our fish like it, and our fish are healthier for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the bacteria is you gotta have bacteria in there. I mean, you know, some of that stuff is the basis of life, you know.
It really is. So if your tank's a little dirty, but your fish are happy, leave it alone. You don't have to don't be cleaning out your tank every week. The fish don't like the water change, and it changes, of course, the chemical balances of your water as well. So keep that in mind. All right, so I sent you this story, and you mentioned this as well, and I think it's really interesting. Viagra can now be soon given to dogs. Erectile dysfunction drug is found to treat potentially fatal rare disorders in canines' esophaguses. Could you please explain that? And then something else that you really bring up, because we're always talking about, you know, I know from human to human, if you have some type of anti-anxiety type of pill, maybe I could take it, maybe a muscle relaxer, and it works for me as well. But what type of drugs can our pets take that humans also take?
There's a ton of drugs that we give dogs that we got from human medicine. I mean, almost everything that we give has some kind of basis in human medicine. Antibiotics, anti-anxiety medications, anesthetics. In the case that you're talking about, sildenafil, so pulmonary hypertension, you know, that's what it was made to treat in people. And we use it in dogs for that too. And then this mega esophagus thing is a new development, but you know, one of the drugs out there that people are going to immediately identify with is Prozac. Lots of people were on Prozac or are on Prozac, and we give that to dogs for anti-anxiety purposes. And it's you know, it works in a lot of dogs, but just like in people, mood altering drugs are sometimes hit or miss. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But the sildenafil thing, you know, it's the reason it's working for megaesophagus is, so megaesophagus is a disease where the esophagus, which is the tube that leads from the mouth to the stomach, it doesn't move the food through. So mega, obviously big, and esophagus is esophagus. So the food just collects there, and the dog regurgitates, which is different than vomiting. They regurgitate, and then the problem with mega esophagus is that the dog can aspirate whatever it regurgitated, and that's a lot of that. In many cases, that's the way the dog dies with mega esophagus, because they regurgitate and they breathe it in. The Jim Morrison disease, or the Jimi Hendrix as well, I guess. Anyway, they've recently found that Viagra can help relax the esophagus so that the food slides down into the stomach, so they don't regurgitate it.
Now, I have to ask this question. At some point, someone had to give their dog the little blue pill. And maybe they did it for fun just to see what would happen, but in order to find out if this science was true, that's how that went down, right?
Well, I think probably somebody was, I think this was done at Washington State. So I would bet that they had a case of megaesophagus, and there was somebody that was really smart sitting around in the room thinking, okay, we need a smooth muscle relaxing drug. Okay, what out there exists? And then they were like, oh, duh, this is a smooth muscle relaxing drug. Why don't we try it?
Yeah. And
so there you go. But I mean, I'm sure at some point, almost every drug that's ever been starts out in clinical trials with an animal model, and it may not be a dog, it may not be a cat, but it's a mouse.
Yeah.
So, at some point, this sildenafil was probably tested on an animal before it ever was given to a human, I would imagine. But I mean, megaesophagus isn't incredibly common in dogs. And so, I'm sure they just never knew until now. And then somebody put two and two together and said, hey, this might work. And lo and behold, it did.
There you go. Dr. Rab Stewart of the Rossbridge Animal Hospital at Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook. And of course, you can find them out at Rossbridge at 205-208-0301. Can dogs get heartburn?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because heartburn is acid reflux, and that can happen with dogs because they're the sphincter that connects their esophagus to their stomach doesn't work as well as it should, and so gastric contents kind of go up in the esophagus. But yeah, I think there's kind of like a gray area between acid reflux and also stomach ulcers or gastric ulcers. And those are super common in dogs.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same thing as acid reflux, but it's kind of in the same neighborhood.
Before I forget to Frisco, my dog who suffers from serious anxiety now, even when it rains or someone brings a garbage can up their driveway, it sounds like thunder. He's freaking out. I need some more anti-anxiety medicine for Frisco. Okay.
Yeah, man. We got you.
All right. Joe in Fort Worth, our first Mutt Mail email here, wants to know what's the strangest name you've ever come across for an animal coming through your Rossbridge Animal Hospital?
Oh man. I think one time somebody named their cat Agent Dale Cooper from the from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And the reason I remember that is because I love Twin Peaks and I love David Lynch. And so that always sticks out in my mind. Like they would call him Agent Dale Cooper, like the full name every time.
Have you ever had a guy come in? Because I know how guys are. They always, if their name is Tom, they want to be Tom the second, Tom the third. Maybe they never had children. Have you ever had someone name an animal after themselves?
Not that I know of. That's good. I've had people, they name their pet a certain name, and that one dies, and then they name it like the second, which I kind of like.
That is pretty cool. We have Rainer, which is an Australian Shepherd, and for some reason, my 14-year-old, who's got some special needs, so he does things differently. He gets from point A to point B in a different way. He calls that dog Mr. Baby, and now the dog is answering more to Mr. Baby than he is Rainer. He doesn't know which dog to come. And it's pretty cool. We say Mr. Baby and he comes running out the door. So either way it works.
That's great.
Stacy in Atlanta is dog training her pup, and she has always been told, always learned that you rub your dog's nose in it. First of all, she wants to know, is that okay to do, to rub your dog in the spot where it peed in the house? And second of all, how long is a dog's attention? In other words, if you do it 10 minutes later, will they even know what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how long they remember it. But I mean, that's something that I think, as far as rubbing their nose in it, I mean, it can work. There are other things that can work, is if you just make a loud noise, you just scare them. But you have to catch them, like you actually have to catch them in the act to make the loud noise. And sometimes, that doesn't happen. But you can't, there is a certain time frame, but again, I don't know what it is. Just me personally, if I don't kind of see them walking away from it, meaning if I don't catch them within a few minutes, I just kind of let it go. Because, most of the time, like my adult dog, so I'm speaking about him right now, he will randomly pee and poop in the house. And so I'll come home, during lunch or after work or whatever, and it's there. And I don't do anything, well, he's not going to remember. But if you have a puppy and you're trying to train a puppy, it's really important to stay on top of them, because that way, if they do pee and poop, you're on them immediately, and you can make a loud noise, or you can scoop them up and put them outside.
And I'll say this, you got to do it early, because when they get older, they will pee and poop. It's amazing how they pee and poop in the house and you don't see it. But puppies aren't smart enough to know that they're not supposed to do it yet. So puppies will pee and poop right in front of you, but a full-grown dog is super. It's amazing to me, because sometimes I'll swear the dog has been in the room with me the entire time I've been sitting there, and there'll be poop down the hallway. I'm like, when did that happen? It's amazing.
So the best advice I could give her is, if you don't have eyes on the puppy and you're trying to house train it, then have it in a confined space, either in a kennel, and the kennel should be small enough so that the dog has to come into contact with the urine or the poop, if they do it in the kennel, because when they come in contact with it, it does go back to that rubbing their nose in it. They don't like it. But what teaches the dog not to pee and poop in the house is putting them in the kennel, and the kennel has to be small enough so if they pee or poop, they have to physically deal with it.
Yeah.
So just confine them and always have your eyes on them, and always take them out, almost constantly. If you're at home, every hour, take them out and keep them on a leash and hold them in the same spot until they go, and then reward them. And that's the one thing, like sometimes anytime an owner comes in and they say, hey, I'm having trouble housebreaking my dog, there's like the aha moment for them is when I say, okay, take your dog out on a leash and hold it in the same spot and make it bored enough so that it'll go. Because they'll say, I'm outside with my dog for like an hour and he doesn't go. I take him or her back inside, and the first thing they do is pee and poop. Yeah, because you didn't get them bored enough outside.
Yeah, I gotcha. And like an 8-year-old still wearing diapers, I am anti-puppy pad. Whenever someone gets puppy pads, I'm like, you're just teaching that dog it's okay to pee and poop in the house, correct?
Yeah, I don't like the pads.
Unless you're gone all day long and you just can't be there, I certainly understand that. But if you're there and you're lazy, that you don't want to train your dog how to pee and poop outside, to have a puppy pad is just a lazy way of telling your dog it's okay. And then you scold them for peeing and pooping in the house. They're like, hell, I've been doing the hallway for 3 years.
Yeah, and I've had people say that their breeder has told them that, and this isn't, it's common enough so that I remember people asking this question, but they'll say, my breeder told me that my dog cannot go outside until it's had a certain number of vaccines. And so they told me that I need to train it to pee and poop on the pad. And so I tell them that's not correct, because if you teach them to pee and poop on that pad, there's a good chance that it's going to be even harder to teach them to go to the bathroom outside. And they can go outside. It's not like these viruses that we're vaccinating for are everywhere. They can't put a toe outside or they're going to get it. You want to keep them away from other dogs, bowel movements, and you want to keep them away from, being nose to nose or like passing respiratory secretions back and forth. But, if you're in your own backyard and, not many dogs come through, then they're going to be fine.
Yeah. This is Darkside the Pooch. You can hear it live here on Tony Curry Radio. Happy to have a show every single Monday at noon and 8 right here on Tony Curry Radio. And if you miss any of these shows, you can go back and listen to all the shows. We've done, 40, 50 different shows. Go to Spotify, search Tony Curry Radio or Darkside the Pooch, and you will see all the episodes come up. And we've tried to do a little bit of an explanation of exactly what each episode is all about. And there's lots of Mutt Mail in there as well. Carrie in Birmingham says she's found 3 dogs in the last 2 weeks that have come in wandering. She lives out in a rural part of Birmingham that have come in, and she doesn't know what to do with these pups. She has heard these horror stories that if she takes them to the local dog pound, that if someone doesn't adopt them, that they'll be put down. What exactly happens to stray dogs when you take them to a pound?
The Greater Birmingham Humane Society is incredible. And I mean, they're really good at finding homes for dogs. Even even dogs that you would think have no shot, an old dog that is, has chronic conditions, and they're great at finding homes for them. I have all the confidence in the world in Greater Birmingham. I know a lot of the people that are involved with that, people on the board, the people that make decisions, and they're great people, and they really care about those animals. So, I would just say, first of all, that I would have no trouble if I found a dog and I just couldn't find a home for it. I couldn't keep it myself, whatever the situation was. I would have no problem taking it to Greater Birmingham because I know that they're going to take good care of them. So put your fears to bed on that one.
Yeah, there was some home, I think they confiscated like over 100 dogs several months ago, and they all went to the Greater Birmingham, and they all took care of them. So they do wonderful work, and it's a great facility too. It's a beautiful facility, so it's awesome. So check that out. Steve in Knoxville wants to know what the perfect chew toy is. This is something that I think every dog owner has gone through. The dogs chew the things you don't want them to chew, and you try to find things that have the same consistency of those things, whether it be a shoe or something else, but they just don't want to chew on those things. What is the perfect chew toy for a dog?
Well, I can't tell you what the perfect one is, but I can tell you what not to use. And anything that has a squeaker in it just immediately needs to be thrown away. Anything that has like stuffing or cloth needs to be thrown away, because the dogs will tear that up and they'll swallow it, and a lot of times it'll get stuck in their small intestine, and then that's an expensive surgery, and it can, if it's not caught soon, it can, eventually they can die from it. And I've taken out several squeakers over the years that they get caught. So I don't know that there is a perfect toy, but those are definitely the imperfect toys. But you're looking for things that are not too hard, because if they're hard like bone, then those will break the dog's teeth. And then they'll have their pulp cavity will be open, and then they can get tooth root infections and have problems with their teeth. So you don't want it to be hard like bone or rock, things like that, like mineral. Hard rubber is pretty good because it's not every dog that can tear that up, and it's not too hard to break their teeth. Now sometimes those things are kind of boring, they don't get a whole lot of pleasure from messing with those things because they can't tear them up. But that's what I would go with.
All right. Speaking of bones, and again, life has changed. We used to give our dog bones right off the table. And now I'm realizing that if you do want to give your dog a bone, there's lots of different bones you can get, certainly at pet supply stores. You want to go raw bones, right? Because cooked bones are brittle and they could choke on them, correct?
I mean, yes. You don't want them to be crunching up bones because they can cause problems. Even if they move through the GI tract, they can cause irritation because they're sharp. But bones will dissolve if they're in the stomach long enough. Stomach acid will actually break those down, but it's still not something that you want to do. Like a synthetic bone that's swallowed, that's not going to get broken down. If it's just like some hard plastic, like a nylabone or something, that's not going to get broken down. But actual real bones, the stomach can eventually take care of, as long as they don't get kicked out into the intestine before the stomach has time to dissolve them.
Gotcha. Tim in Birmingham asked the age-old question, why does my dog stare at me? I'm not going to read the entire email, but he mentions that, he certainly understands after a long, hard day, he's sitting in his chair, the dog comes up, lays his chin on his leg and wants to be pet and is looking for attention. He said, but there's a couple of other times when he's with his wife that the dog just continually stares at him. Why do dogs stare at human beings?
I wish I knew. I don't know. I wish that I could hear what they were thinking, because it would make my job a lot easier. I mean, I would think you want something, food, attention, to be let outside, one of those handful of things.
Yeah. Trish, also in Birmingham, she loves the old saying, old dogs. And normally when you got two dogs that have grown up together, they've been together for a long period of time, it seems like when one passes away, the other one passes away soon thereafter. First of all, is that true?
I mean, I think it's more of a coincidence than anything, but they definitely mourn, when we have one pet in the household that passes away, the owner, a lot of the owners will say, I mean, I can definitely tell that my other dog misses my cat, or my other cat misses my dog, or my cat misses my cat, whatever the case may be. So they definitely mourn. But I don't know, I keep giving these music references, but June and Johnny Cash, they went pretty quick. So I don't know, maybe there's something to it.
Do you give your dog or cat a grieving period? Because I know a lot of people, if they've had 2 or 3 dogs around for a long period of time, the minute one dies, they're bringing in another one within a couple of days. And I would think that would be kind of disruptive to an older dog too, right?
I guess it could be. I guess it depends. Like some people, I think dogs are different, just like people are. Some people want to get a pet before their geriatric pet dies, because they need that in their life. And there are some people that, the pet dies and then they need months or even years, or maybe even never, maybe they never get another pet. So I wonder if maybe dogs and cats are the same way. There's probably some that they don't want to be alone. They'd rather have a friend. And there's some that probably need time to process their loss.
How do you tell if a cat is grieving? Seriously. I mean, I'm not a cat person, but how can you tell?
I think that they'd be really vocal, and like they would be searching through the house, Yeah,
that makes sense.
Kind of calling out, and, just lots of, looking around.
Yeah, he's Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. Of course, you can call him anytime at 205-208-0301. Rossbridge Vet on Twitter and the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook. They'll take your questions and certainly follow them. They do a fantastic job. Jill in Huntsville asked the question, why does your dog's leg go crazy when you rub his belly?
Oh, because he's itchy. So it's kind of like when you scratch them and they're doing their leg thing, it's because they're itchy, and it's just kind of it's a reflex. There's one thing that kind of this brings up, but if a dog has scabies, which is a type of mite, sarcoptic mange, so different from Demodex mange, but there's a thing called the pineal reflex.
Mm-hmm.
And just because your dog does this doesn't mean it has the disease. Okay, I'm just saying that. But if you take the end of their ear and you put your fingers, like if anyone out there listening, you put your fingers together like you're gesturing like the money sign that Johnny Manziel used to do all the time. The money sign. Yeah. If you put the tip of your dog's ear between your fingers and do that, if they also have classic lesions for this type of mange. So if they have lesions and you do this with their ear and then they kick their back leg, then it can be a way to diagnose that type of mite, which is kind of interesting.
Off their ear?
Yeah. Yeah. You just take their ear and you just, you make the money sign with the ear and in between your fingers and thumbs, and then they'll hit their back foot like a rabbit.
Really? Or could it be they just hate Johnny Manziel?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's possible.
All right, Dr. Rab Stewart of the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. Anything else going on at the store? Everything good?
Yeah, everything is great. We got we got great people. We got great pets. So we're in good shape.
Fantastic. Check them out. Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook. Give them a call, 205-208-0301. And, of course, Darkside the Pooch brought to you by Ed's Pet World. 47 years in the business right there in Homewood, man. If you have not been to Ed's Pet World, you're missing out on something. They've got everything in exotic pets. They do it all. Not so much cats and dogs, although they will take some in, but they've got everything from Amazon parrots to chameleons to rabbits. We're getting ready for Easter coming up next couple of months. Chinchillas, ferrets. They've got rats for your snakes. They got everything. It's an amazing, of course, a plethora of different fish, too, and an amazing collection of vintage and modern toys. Seth is the owner of this amazing institution. Central Alabama has a passion for collective vintage and modern toys. Everything from Star Wars to watches, collectibles, figures, pops, you name it. They buy, sell, and trade. Check out Ed's Pet World, proud sponsor, Darkside the Pooch, 879-1331, 879-1331. Until next week, my little barking friend, I appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you then.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.